Thank you for tuning in to AWANI, and right now we're going to shift our discussion towards property industry, a topic that has been widely discussed, especially the ever high selling prices. But today, right now, we want to bring the latest issue in the rise of sales and service tax or SST from 6 to 8%, and how will it impact the property acquisition. So to discuss further, joining me on the line is Sheldon Fernandez, the country manager of PropertyGuru Malaysia. Good morning, Sheldon.
Good morning, Nabila. Thanks for having us.
All right, firstly, perhaps you can share to us how do you anticipate the rise of SST from 6 to 8 will impact or the overall affordability of houses, especially towards the low and middle income households?
Yeah, so the rise of the SST was much anticipated coming into 2024. And if you look at our consumer sentiment study that we did in the first half of 2024, about 60% of our respondents agreed that the increase in service tax that was introduced in the budget in 2024 will affect the cost of property and therefore the cost of them making the decision of buying a property. What I think we got to also understand that this increase in this service tax has a multiplier effect. So it's not a direct impact of the 2% increase, but overall transferred cost to the end purchaser. So for example, Radar came out and said that, they see an increase in raw materials, particularly going up, and therefore this will increase the property prices by about 10 to 15%. So that is a direct, or rather that's the multiplier impact, if you can, towards the end user. So this will lead to buyers obviously being more conscious about price, right? They'll become more price sensitive and therefore delay more decisions when it comes to buying, particularly because we already face an affordability challenge in the property market.
And of course, when the value is high, it's directed to all the potential buyers towards rental sector. So how do you foresee this trend of rental sector towards the upcoming years, or not just in 2024, but upcoming years and also the second half of the year, 2024?
Yeah, so because a house is a basic necessity, it's, everybody got to live under one roof. So it's either, they purchase a property, but if they're not purchasing, then clearly they're going to rent. But the housing affordability issues have led to consumers obviously to pivot towards renting, at least in the short to medium term. And about half of our purchases surveys, respondents who did the survey, about half of them said that they will delay their purchasing decisions in the next 1 to 3 years. And the main reason behind that, a big 65% of those respondents basically said it is down to insufficient savings in order to purchase a property. So, clearly this is going to be a short to medium term reaction that we will see. However, even in the renting space, they face some challenges around location of which they want to rent. They have a budget about 1,500 ringgit when it comes to renting properties. 90% of those renting today also have that sort of a budget range. So all this we think will be a short to medium term trend that we will see, particularly if they're not buying, then they will definitely rent.
Like you said, even if it's a short to medium term, but what can we anticipate on the implications toward the property developers?
So yes, because in the property sector, it's really around the demand and supply, but obviously this is led by demand. So property developers clearly will need to take a very like-minded approach to where the demand is. And if you look at our demand that we track on the Property Guru and iProperty portal, we've seen a decline of 7.4%. But at the same time, 60% of our respondents have indicated that they are willing to go into the purchasing decision. So the intent to buy is there, but there's some real challenges around affordability. So as a developer, clearly you want to build properties that people want to buy, and therefore take a more data-driven approach. And this insight that we do from the consumer sentiment survey is one leading indicator around where the demand is going to be. About 60% of our respondents have said purchasing a home, one of the values that they will look at is about 400,000 ringgit and lower. That's an indication of where the demand is. Clearly, this is not a one-party effort. It's an ecosystem of players. There's the developers, there's government, there's banks that all come together towards helping the consumer own a property. I think greater public-private partnership is something that they can look at Today, they have this cross-subsidy method that they use to build affordable housing. But I think a greater partnership with regulators, government, and banks would potentially help them move in the right direction to meet the demand that the consumers are ready for, which is property prices around 400,000 and lower.
And given another data that I could extract from the report is quarter-on-quarter declined of 7.4% in the sale demand index in fourth quarter of last year, 2023. So what strategies can we impose or perhaps adjustments of real estate the developers should adopt, considering that right now the economic situation and also the rising of interest rates especially?
Yeah, so as I said, I think this involves multiple stakeholders playing a role in it, and not just one party, which is a developer. So affordable housing or public housing is one foundation that we need to lay properly in order to help the industry grow, which is the property industry in general. So I think the government plays a crucial role down here in encouraging developers who build affordable housing projects. But clearly, they can help them with incentives and subsidies that will enable them to meet this demand. The other thing that we need to look at is also embracing sustainability in terms of the building practices. So you can leverage technology around, greater cost control and cost measures in order to build properties. So these are areas that I think the stakeholders can play, and obviously banks, when it comes to responsible lending towards the stakeholders in terms of financing the project and affording this lending to the right project and the right developers.
And another thing that we can look at is balancing. There are some that want affordable house, but there are some people or a household that prefers to have value-oriented features and amenities. So how should developers adjust these offerings to align with this demand from different sectors or different demands from two different, like I said just now, affordability and also value-oriented features?
Yeah, so it's a very interesting question. I'm glad you asked it, because we actually came up with a very interesting insight based on the respondents and the survey that we conducted. Because clearly there's a shift, as we see, when it comes to making these decisions, and the shift towards value-oriented property. So the survey said that 37 of our respondents, 37% of our respondents, and particularly from the middle-income households, are willing to forego certain amenities in order to ensure that the property that they eventually move in can be affordable. So things like a yoga deck or a jacuzzi or a tennis court or even a swimming pool or gym, for that matter, these are the amenities that they're willing to forego. So that was a very interesting insight to see the consumer mindset shift to ensure they can play a part as well in a value-oriented property. So a property that focuses on essential and therefore allow them to be within the budget in order for them to afford the property. So this is something the developers can clearly consider because amenity does increase cost. More space takes up building amenities, the more cost is incurred. But if you can build more basic features that the consumers are demanding for, then hopefully that can be within an affordable range that will meet the demand and the supply, which is really the key factors when it comes to property market.
Amazing. But from the report as well, another thing that we can look at is on the project delays, low construction quality, sick and also abandoned projects. So how should developers as well as governments can do, or perhaps what strategy can we impose to build bioconfidence and also prevent project setbacks?
So yeah, so the reason why we call it a consumer sentiment survey is because property is very sentimental in that aspect. But it's really around the confidence that the buyers have in the industry, or in order to make that big decision that they need to make of owning the property. So whenever you have project delays, or in recent years we've seen the government categorized as sick projects, all these causes reputation impact in the industry, and therefore brings down confidence. So I think this doesn't help the industry in general. But clearly some responsibility needs to be on the burden of a developer that if they do embark on the project to ensure that it's completed well, handed over well, and obviously ensure that the residents, when they move in, they have the right living condition maintained well in order to ensure a sustained environment for a good living condition.
But there are actually two enforcement by authorities, that is defect liability period, DLP, and also developers guarantee fund. So how feasible are these proposals, and what steps can be taken to support this enforcement?
So I think this exactly that. I think this underscores the need for a responsible environment where regulators are playing their part, stricter enforcement clearly. But all these plays a role in terms of the end user having entered into making this purchase decision of a large sector, ensure that they have eventually have an ownership of a good property that they can live in good living conditions. And I don't think this is just down to developers. I think if you look at the government and their focus around, ensuring that there's a greater focus around sustainable living when it comes to public housing moving forward. Even government is looking at their role that they're playing to ensure that the build type of affordable housing continues to meet the standard and or where the demand from the consumer is. So greater enforcement clearly. And yes, there was in our survey a high 60% about the need for developers, the DLP period to be extended. To ensure that that whenever defects are identified, they're well taken care of. But also around the developer guarantee fund, basically protecting the interest of the buyer when it comes to uh, um, any potential impact that they may experience when it comes to ownership of the property.
All right, we've talked about all the challenges that we face in the property sector, but another thing is how can developer actually practice sustainable practices into their projects while maintaining affordable house, but at the same time, what can they do, or perhaps what incentive to support potential buyers to facilitate this transition?
I think we talked about good governance, developer playing responsibility when it comes to as soon as they launch a project, ensure that it's fully built, well built, and then hand over. But regulators play a role down here in terms of enforcement as well. They can also look, when it comes to good governance in terms of how they match the demand and the supply. We talked a lot around what the consumers want, the interesting insights around the consumer making a focus towards a value-oriented property. So these are the decisions that they can make going into building the properties that meet those demands. But clearly, when it comes to property, it's not just about the purchasing decision. Eventually, it's about the cost of ownership, the maintenance of the property, and therefore everything that they build for need to ensure that it's sustainable and moving in the long, and obviously meeting that demand in the longer sustainable period.
Okay, maybe another thing, or perhaps other challenges that you see. Perhaps we've talked about high cost of living, high cost of the cost of affordable houses as well. But what are other challenges, perhaps that stops potential buyers from buying houses, or perhaps rent houses, and also that stopped or prevent from collaborative efforts from the governments and also developers?
Well, I think, when it comes to owning a property, whilst we look at affordability, that is one. The other thing is obviously income levels. And I think, this is where the government is focusing on in terms of job creation, in increasing the minimum wage, looking at minimum wage policies. And I think this is moving in the wrong direction because whilst you tackle affordability in the short term, what you want to have is a vibrant open market environment where the demand and supply takes care of itself. So one way to look at it is, the income levels, the job creation. Unemployment rate in Malaysia is still low, and that's good. In the long run, it helps with property sector. As income grows, as the gap between property price and income narrows, and within a manageable range, then I think you have a very vibrant open market. But the foundation of it all is affordable housing, and you can see steps taken and focus taken in terms of ensuring that we're moving in that direction around tackling affordable housing. If you look at some of the schemes available out there, a lot of our buyers have clearly indicated that they need government help when it comes to affordable housing. They're very open towards the Madani housing scheme. You've obviously got other things like SEMA, you've got Project Perumahan Rakyat, you've got Rumah Selangor. So all these incentives actually help buyers get into the property ownership decision, actually own the properties. But it does take good governance and financial responsibility also from the consumer side. And one way is to ensure that they have good jobs and good paying jobs.
Of course, we want to see the synergy between the governments, the industry players, and also house developers to always collaborate efforts to not just overcome these challenges, but also to foster a resilient and equitable property market ecosystem as a whole. So thank you so much to Sheldon Fernandez, the Country Manager of PropertyGuru Malaysia. Hope to speak to you soon.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Nabila.